Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's The 99 Beautiful Names of God, Al-Maqsad Al-Asna fi Sharhi Asma'illah Al-Husna, translated by David Borer and Nazir Bahir. We have reached number 29, Al-Hakam. This is the very last two lines on page 85. Imam Al-Ghazali said, Rahimahullah, Al-Hakam, and the translators translated this as the arbitrator, is the arbitrating magistrate, the judge, the provider of justice, absolute wise judgment, but he is the judge. And they have the translators added the avenging judge. I don't know where they got the avenging. I'm talking about the text. هو الحاكم المحكم والقاضي، أو الحاكم المحكم والقاضي المسلم، الذي لا راد لقضائه ولا معقب لحكمه. So the word avenging is, I don't see it in the Arabic text. The absolute judge, the whose ruling no one overturns, whose ruling one should submit to, whose decree no one corrects. Among his rulings concerning men is that man has only what he strives for, and that his effort will be seen. وَلَيْسَ الْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى وَأَنَّ سَعْيَهُ سَوْفَ يُرَى. And that the righteous will meet happiness, while the wicked will meet hellfire. إن الأبرار لفي نعيم وإن الفجار لفي جحيم. His ruling regarding happiness to the righteous and misery to the wicked means that he makes righteousness and iniquity to be causes leading to the one who possesses them to happiness or misery, as he makes medicines and poisons to be causes leading to the one who receives them to recovery or death. And happiness ultimately is about being forgiven and being accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and being granted paradise. If the meaning of ruling is to arrange the causes and apply them to their effects, he will be an absolute arbitrator, because he is the one who causes all the causes, in general and in detail. Branching out from the arbitrator are the divine decree and predestination. Predestination, it depends really what is it that we talking about. it has also been the qada and qadar. It has been translated also as allotment. And allotment probably is because people are not predestined. This would lead us to discussion of the Ash'arite concept of acquisition. The example that I usually give, you talk about two neighborhood stores selling the identical items, and at the end of the day, one would make, let's say, as profit 100, let's say, dollars, and the other one makes $200. Identical, everything's identical. This is allotment. You both of them opening the same hours, same neighborhood, same prices, except that they don't make the same money. So the concept of allotment is could be found in Murata and Chitik, the vision of Islam, when they discuss the qada and qadar. His planning the principles, positing the causes, is so that his ruling may be applied to the effects. His appointing the universal causes, original, fixed, and stable like the earth, the seven heavens, the stars, the celestial bodies, with their harmonious and constant movements, which neither change nor corrupt, which remain without change until what is written be fulfilled. This is his decree. As the Most High said, then he ordained them 7 heavens in 2 days and inspired in each heaven its mandate. فقضاهن 7 سماوات في يومين وأوحى في كل سماء أمرها. But if the Imam Ghazali continues by saying he's applying these causes with their harmonious defined plan and tangible movements to the effects resulting from them from moment to moment is his predestination in the laws of the universe, in the physical laws of the universe. As an interpretation. But subhanahu wa ta'ala, he could suspend. He decrees, and part of like in the story of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed that the fire would not burn Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. It should, but it didn't. This is this, of course, Imam Ghazali's theological perspective on this is called occasionalism, where the things happen, what we call cause and effect, at the same time, but it's not really the absolute cause. And I think this was was motivated by such a story as that of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam. The ruling is the initial planning of the whole, together with the initial command which is like the twinkling of an eye. كلمح البصر. The decree is the positing of universal and constant causes. Predestination applies universal causes with their ordained and measured movements to their effects, numbered and defined according to a determined measure, which neither increases nor decreases. And for that reason, nothing escapes his decree and his predestination. This cannot be understood without an example. Perhaps you have seen the orologue by which the times of prayer are announced. If you have not seen it, this much may be said of it in outline. There must be a device in it in the form of a cylinder containing a definite amount of water and another hollow device placed in that above the water, with a string whose one end is tied to this hollow device, while its other end is tied to the bottom of a small vessel placed above the hollow cylinder. In that vessel is a bowl, and below it there is a shallow metal container placed in such a way that if the ball fell down from the vessel, it would fall into the metal container and its tinkling would be heard. Furthermore, a hole of a definite size is made in the bottom of the cylindrical device so that the water run out of it little by little. As the water level is lowered, the hollow device placed on the surface of the water will be lowered, thus pulling the string attached to it and moving the vessel with the ball in it with a movement which nearly tilts it over. Once it is tilted, the ball rolls out of it and falls into the metal container and tinkles. At the end of each hour, a single ball falls. Now, the separation between the two falls is determined by regulating the outflow of the water and its level, and that is done by determining the size of the hole through which the water flows, and that is known by way of calculation, since the amount of water coming out would be known and determined because the size of the hole has been determined by a known measure. So the level of the water lowers by that amount, thereby regulating the descent of the hollow device, and so effectuating the string tied to it and initiating the movement in the vessel with the ball in it. All that is determined when its cause all that is determined when its cause it determined without increase or decrease. It is also possible that the falling of the ball into the container cause the next movement, and this movement cause a third, and so on, through many levels to the point where remarkable movements are initiated by it, regulated by a defined measure. And their first cause is the outflow of water according to a definite amount. If you can picture this, you should know that devising it requires three things. First of all, planning the decision concerning what is needed regarding devices, causes, and movements leading to attaining what needs to be attained. That is the ruling. Second, creating these devices which are its fundamental constituents, and they are the cylindrical device containing the water, the hollow device placed on the surface of the water, and the string tied to it, the vessel with the ball in it, and the container into which the ball falls. That is the decree. Thirdly, setting up a cause, necessitating the determined, measured, and defined movement, and that is making a hole of a determined size in the bottom of the device so that when the water comes out of it, the movement in the water will lead to a movement in the surface of the water by lowering it, and thence to a movement in the hollow device placed on the surface of the water, then to a movement in the string, then to a movement of the vessel containing the ball, then to a movement in the ball, thence to the blow of the container when it falls in it, or when it falls into it, then to tinkling which that affects, thence to alerting those present, and to their listening, and finally to their movements as they engage in prayers and actions once they know that the hour has come. And all of that will be according to a definite measure and established plan by reason of the regulation of all of it by the measure of the first movement, the movement of the water. Before we continue reading the what all this beautiful description of that orolog, I think it's important to acknowledge first of all Imam Al-Ghazali's accurate, beautiful, scientific description, if you will, of this device. To appreciate that they had such a clock, if you will, so that they will pay attention to the time of the prayer, because it is designed in such a way. Obviously, Imam Al-Ghazali is fascinated by this box, by this clock, and this could also be used for many years. I have said that if we have a mechanical engineer who reads Imam Ghazali's description, I'm sure he will be able to reconstruct this water clock, if you will. But Imam Ghazali ultimately he used this example to show, to bring it closer to us, the idea that the whole universe is ticking like that a clock, of course, without comparison, because that clock might, be dysfunctional at one point or the other, not the universe. Now, if you have understood that these devices are the fundamental constituents, which are essential if there is to be movement, and that the movement must be regulated so that what is initiated from it is regulated also, should be able to understand in a similar way how predetermined events take place, none of which precedes or falls behind when its appointed time comes. When its appointed time comes, that is, once its cause is present. And all this takes place according to a definite plan, for God brings His command to pass, since God has set a measure for everything. For the heavens and celestial bodies, the stars, the earth, sea, and air, and these large bodies of the universe are like those devices, while the cause of the movement of the celestial bodies and the stars, and the sun and the moon, according to a definite calculation, is like the hole which sees to it that the water descends according to definite measure, and the movement of the sun, moon, and stars flowing out to affect events on earth is like the effluent movement of the water to affect those movements which result in the balls falling, and so informing people that the hour has come. An example of the association of heaven's movements with changes on earth is given when the sun, by its movements, reaches its point of rising and shines over the world, so that people can see more easily, and it is easier for them to go out to their work. And when it reaches the west at sunset, those things become difficult for them, and they return home. When it nears the midpoint of the sky, its zenith above the heads of the people of the region, the air is heated, and the summer heat becomes more intense, and fruit ripens. When it moves beyond that point, winter comes, and the cold intensifies. When it maintains a middle course, we have moderate temperatures. Spring comes, the earth germinates, and greenery appears. So for the marvels you do not know, use an analogy. With these, everything you know to the marvels you do not know. The differences among all these seasons are regulated by a known measure, because they depend on the movements of the sun and the moon. The movements of the sun and moon. And the sun and moon are calculated, and the sun and moon are calculated. That is, their movements have a known measure. And the sun and moon are calculated. الشمس والقمر بحسبان. They are calculated, of course, if you talk about the calculation, whether it is the movement, whether it's the size, the weight, the course, the orbits, in the plural, the moon has its own orbit around the earth, and there is an orbit, our solar system, our sun, moves around the around the galaxy, around the Milky Way, and the speed is one cannot really even imagine the speed of the Earth per second, really, speed of the sun and all the other planets, bodies. The length of this orbit, it takes 226 million years to orbit the center of our galaxy, to go back to the same point. at the speed of 230 kilometers per second. And our movement is really, it is practically spiral. It's not really on a plane whereby the way we were taught in school. Of course, it's not accurate. And this is only in our own galaxy, which has about 400 billion stars. And these galaxies, at least one major massive black hole in the center of the galaxy. Yes, you can think about the universe, but ultimately one reaches ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك وقنا عذاب النار. We are required, invited to ponder upon the universe. One cannot even imagine how vast the universe is. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran makes it very clear that the creation of the universe is greater than the creation of the human being, though it is absolutely great. Fascinating. So الشمس والقمر بحسبان. One might think also about the concept of time. Okay. Whether you talk about the concept of time, more than one concept of time. For the heavens and celestial bodies, the stars, the earth, sea, and air, and these large bodies of the universe are like those devices, while the cause of the movement of the celestial bodies and the stars and the sun and the moon, according to a definite calculation. It's like the hole which sees to it that the water descends according to a definite measure, and the movement of the sun, moon, and stars flowing out to affect events on earth is like the affluent movement of the water to affect those movements, which result in the balls falling, and so informing people that the hour has come. And ultimately, and the sun and moon are calculated. That is, their movements have a known measure. Now, this is planning, while setting up universal causes is the decree. And the primary planning, which is like the twinkling of an eye, is the ruling. God Most High is a just arbitrator in these matters, as the movement of the device, the string, and the ball are not outside the will of the one devising the instruments, but are rather what he intended in devising the instrument. In a similar way, no event which occurs in the world, be it evil or good, beneficial or harmful, is outside the will of God, great and glorious. Rather, they are the intention of God Most High, for the sake of which he planned his causes. And this is the meaning of his saying, for that he did create them. ولذلك خلقهم. Explaining divine matters by way of controversial, conventional examples is difficult. Yet the aim of examples is to counsel, leave the example aside, and be alert to the objective, and be aware of making likeness and anthropomorphism. Tanbih, counsel. You have understood from the example just mentioned how much of ruling, insight, decree, and planning man has, and that it is insignificant. In fact, what is important to him from all this consists in planning religious exercises and battles and determining policies which lead to the well being of religion and the world. It is for that reason that God appointed his servants, vicars, vicegerents, on earth and settled them on it to watch over how they work. The religious profit to be gained from beholding this attribute of God Most High is to know that the matter is settled and not to be appealed, for the pen is already dry. It's a metaphor meaning that everything has already been decreed, having written what exists. The causes are already applied to their effects, and their being impelled towards their effect in their proper and appointed times is a necessary inevitability. Inevitability. Whatever enters into existence enters into it by necessity, for it is necessity that it exists. If it is not necessary in itself, it will be necessary by the eternal decree which is irresistible. So man learns that what is decreed exists, and that anxiety is superfluous. As a result, he will act well in seeking his livelihood with a tranquil spirit, a calm soul, and a heart free from disruption. But you may say two ambiguities arise from this. But you may say two ambiguities arise from it. First, how can anxiety be superfluous when it is also decreed? For a cause has been determined for it, and once its effects occurs, it is necessary that anxiety be realized. The second raises the question: if the matter is already settled, why work when the cause for happiness or distress has already been settled? The answer to the first question is that their saying what is decreed exists and anxiety is superfluous do not mean that it is superfluous in the sense that it is outside all determination, but rather that it is itself superfluous, that is, useless nonsense, for it will not cancel what is decreed. It is pure ignorance to let something whose occurrence is expected be a cause for distress, because of its occurrence is decreed, when neither caution nor anxiety can cancel it. It is like hastening some sort of pain out of fear of pain's occurring at its occurrence, and if its occurrence is not decreed, there will be no sense worrying about it. So, in both of these respects, anxiety is superfluous. And probably this is really the source of not only anxiety but also probably depression. People worry too much. They between a past that they cannot change, except in theological terms, one can repent about the past, but you cannot change that it did take place. Number two, worrying too much about the future, not in the sense of not planning, not because the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is next, will explain this, but worrying too much, and I know that this is really a fact amongst amongst people. As for work, the Prophet's answer to that was in his saying, may God blessings and peace be upon him, work, for the path is made easy for everyone toward what he was created for. We'll get back to the hadith, inshallah, in a minute. This means that for whomever happiness is ordained, it is determined by a cause, and its cause become easy, to wit, obedience. And for whomever misery is determined, God forbid, it is determined by a cause, and that is one's indolence with regard to pursuing its causes. And the cause for his indolence might be what is settled in his mind. If I am destined for happiness, there is no need to work, and if I am to be miserable, there is no point in working. But that is foolishness, for he does not realize that if he is to be happy, he would only be happy because of the causes of happiness, like knowledge and work, would come to him. And if they are not within his reach and do not come to him, that is an indication of his misery. Now for the hadith, essentially this hadith is part of a hadith that is a longer version narrated by both Al-Bukhari and Muslim, and the Prophet ﷺ was just had like a small wooden, twig, sometimes we say, like a small piece of a branch with which he was moving the earth in front of him. Then he raised his head, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the Imam Muslim and Sahih Muslim, the Sahih Muslim version. And he said, after he raised his head, none of you, except that its place is like his soul, none of you is except that is his place in either in paradise or hellfire is known. ما منكم من نفس إلا وقد علم منزلها من الجنة والنار. The companions exclaimed, they said, O Messenger of God, why should we work? Why should we act? Why should we perform? Shouldn't we depend on that ultimately we will be destined to whatever we are destined for? He said, no, do work. اعملوا فكل ميسر لما خلق له, which is the phrase that we have here. Work, for the path is made easy for everyone towards what he was created for. Then he recited, the Prophet ﷺ, فَأَمَّا مَنْ أَعْطَى وَاتَّقَى وَصَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى, until he reached فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْعُسْرَى. These are the verses 5 to 10 of Surah Al-Layl. The Sahih al-Bukhari even just a little bit also longer, because it does the context is even clearer, because the hadith begins by saying there was a funeral in the Baqiyah, and the Prophet ﷺ came and sat, and we sat around him. but ultimately it's the same, essentially the same hadith. That you need to act. You need to act. Now Imam Ghazali gives an example. For a similar case, take someone who wants to be a jurisprudent, a scholar of fiqh, and reach the rank of an imam, like really to be top-notch, a leader in the field. If it is said to him, work hard, learn, and persevere, he will say, if God, great and glorious, decreed from eternity for me to be an imam, then no effort will be needed. Yet if he decreed for me to be ignorant, then no effort is required. He should be told, if he gave this thought power over you, it shows that he has decreed for you to be ignorant. If he decreed eternally for someone to be an imam, he decreed it in its causes, so that the causes will come to him, and he will dispose him by means of them, and he will remove thoughts from him which would lure him to discouragement or idleness. Indeed, the one who makes no effort will not achieve the rank of imam at all, whereas for the one who strives and finds its causes within his reach, his hope of attaining it will come true if he continues his efforts to the end and encounters no obstacles which block the way. From this you should understand that no one attains happiness except those who come to God with a sound heart. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Soundness of heart is a quality acquired by effort, like understanding oneself and the quality of being an imam, and there is no difference between them. There is, some scholars said it in poetry. They said, I spend the night up, meaning I spend the night up studying, writing. وَتَبِيتُهُ نَوْمًا, and you spend it sleeping, and you still entertain the idea that you could reach the same level as I do. وَتَبْغِ بَعْدَ ذَاكَ لِحَاقِ. So this is really the scholars have, we know it in Arabic poetry also. مَنْ طَلَبَ عَلَى الْعُلَى سَهِرَ اللَّيَالِي. Those who would like to reach high, like in this case, to be jurisprudent and to be an imam, a leading figure in the field, then you should spend the nights up, not spending the nights up, watching TV, but really working hard. Many examples could be said in this respect. Of course, in beholding the arbitrator, people are at different levels. There are some who regard the end, considering how life will end for them, and some who regard the beginning, considering how it was decreed for them in eternity. The latter are higher because the end is contingent upon the beginning. Some take leave of past and future and are sons of the moment, ibn waqtihi, for they contemplate him. They contemplate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, happy with the result of the predestination of God, the allotment, great and glorious, and what appears of it, and these are higher than the ones preceding. Then there are some who take leave of present, past, and future, whose hearts are absorbed in the arbitrator, clinging to their vision of Him, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the highest level. Inshallah, in the next session we'll be dealing with Al-Adl بإذنه تعالى. Until then, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.